Just when I thought CNN couldn't get any dumber. Just when I thought CNN couldn't be any more out of touch. Just when I thought CNN couldn't get any more pathetic. Once again, another woke welfare collector at CNN borrows the woke shovel from one of the many untalented people that work there who are currently burying their own media careers. Another woke welfare collector borrows the woke shovel and prepares her own plot next to the donut diva, Brian Stelter. How many of you guys have ever heard of Nicole Hemmer? Anyone? No one's heard of Nicole Hemmer before? She is the Associate Professor of History at Vanderbilt University. She received her indoctrination at Woke U Columbia, where she spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get all these letters like M.A. and Ph.D. next to her name. Poor Nicole. She could have just joined the LGBT community for free and received all the free letters that she wanted. But I will give her credit for one thing, though. Unlike pretend Dr. Jill Biden, I couldn't find any evidence of Nicole Hemmer demanding to be called a doctor. She is a contributor for the New York Times, the Washington Post, and NPR. She has successfully hit the trifecta in the woke media. But being the ambitious parishioner of Woke United Methodist that she is, Nicole, she went for the superfecta by becoming a columnist at CNN. Judging by her latest article, I'm going to assume that Nikki Hemmer does not have a husband. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Headline from CNN: Jerry Seinfeld isn't alone in pining for dominant masculinity. I see what you did there, Nikki. You're not fooling Uncle KC. You didn't want to use the word toxic because you knew that would automatically cause normal people to read your garbage with bias. So instead of describing it by its proper term of toxic masculinity, Nicole Hemmer, she uses the art of disguise and she calls it dominant masculinity. Now, of course, those of us who look to the sky for rainbows instead of the flagpole, we just call it masculinity. Recently, Jerry Seinfeld was interviewed by the Free Press, and they were talking about the demise of masculinity. Seinfeld was talking about growing up in the 1960s and how different men are today when compared to the dudes back then. According to Nicole Hemmer, this interview was so traumatizing, they glossed over the civil rights movement. They only talked about toxic masculinity. Yeah. I guess you can't have a conversation about the 60s without talking about race. Hell, at CNN, you can't have a conversation about the plight of the sea donkey without injecting race into the discussion. But since Nicole Hemmer wants to inject race into this conversation, let's talk about the civil rights movement in the 1960s. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Wasn't that movement led by masculinity? Wasn't that movement led by strong black men who the media would describe today as toxically masculine? I'm pretty sure the leader of the movement was named Dr. Martin Luther King. I don't remember hearing the name Martha Linda Queen. The same toxic masculinity that Nicole Hemmer detests, it is the same masculinity that broke racial barriers for minorities in this country. The same minorities that CNN claims to be fighting for. As expected from someone who has been indoctrinated at Woke U and someone who dedicates their life to inclusion, Nicole Hemmer, she utilized the art of inclusion to include big words in her publication of propaganda that are never used in everyday conversation. Words like revenge-kissed, blinkered, and my personal favorite, yada yada. Now, I think she copied and pasted yada yada from an article written by the Star Trek virgin Mike Freeman. When he is trying to seduce Master Yoda, he attempts to speak in his native language. Oh, Master Yoda, yada yada. Throughout the article, Nicole Hemmer, she attacks three legendary comedians and media personalities. I've already mentioned Jerry Seinfeld, but she also went after Adam Carolla and Bill Maher. All three of these beacons of masculinity, they are pushing for a return to what the media describes as an antiquated America. According to Nicole Hemmer, the masculinity they defend is adamantly heterosexual, threatened not just by women, but also the G's and LGBT and the gender non-conforming. What? Come again? Let me make sure I'm understanding CNN correctly. You mean to tell me that dudes who embrace their masculinity are threatened by people like Leah Thomas? Threatened by Rachel Levine? You expect me to believe that masculine dudes are afraid of identifiers parading through the streets, gripping tightly to the protection of their emotional support shovel? Nicole Hemmer also claims that the toxic masculinity of the 1960s, it's having a negative impact on the lives of women today. Believe it or not, I partially agree here with Nicole Hemmer. The lives of women are being negatively impacted today, but it ain't because of toxic masculinity. According to Nicole Hemmer, women are being denied medical care and teachers are being fired for teaching Black history. Where in the hell's that happening? Someone give me one example of a teacher being fired for teaching about Black history. Maybe teachers have been fired for teaching critical race theory to kids in daycare, but I have yet to see a teacher fired for teaching Black history. And where are all these women who are being denied access to medical care? Well, KC, draconian states are denying women access to Planned Parenthood. It's outrageous! Some people would call that law enforcement. The Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade a couple of years ago. Now, whether you agree with that decision or not really doesn't matter. The Supreme Court has decided that individual states could make their own decisions regarding abortion. If you live in a state that doesn't align with your personal beliefs on the issue, move to a state that does. Nicole Hemmer continues with the propaganda by claiming comedians like Bill Maher blame women for the emasculation of men. Me personally, I don't blame the emasculation of men on women. I blame it on Hollywood and the mainstream media. I blame it on propaganda. Have you ever watched movies and TV shows from the 1940s and 1950s? Back then, Hollywood portrayed men as masculine. The women were chasing the men, the dudes were rugged, they were tough, they were smart. Now, compare the way men were portrayed back then to how men have been portrayed on television in the last few decades. How many movies have you seen where men are putting women on pedestals, worshiping women, chasing after women, begging them for a relationship? How many TV shows have you seen where men are portrayed as clueless and dumb? It's called conditioning. We have several generations, my own included, who have seen men portrayed this way over and over and over. Eventually, they mimic what they see. We have a generation of men who think women should be leading the relationship. Hollywood has conditioned women to believe they need a sensitive man. You want a man who will go shopping with you. You want a man who will be glad to take a trip to the nail salon to get his bunion treated. No you don't. Lately, my wife has gotten me into watching this show on Netflix called Love is Blind. Now, normally, I don't like dating shows. I've never watched The Bachelor or any of that bullshit, but this show on Netflix is pretty good. They put men and women into these pods where they can't see each other. The relationships, they are based on conversation instead of physical appearance. I've noticed a trend while watching this show. Vast majority of the women on this show, they all want the same thing in men. They want the man to lead the relationship. They want the man to be a provider. Now, that doesn't mean they want to give up their own careers, but they want the man to provide. I have yet to see one woman on this show looking for a stay-at-home dad. I've yet to see one woman on this show begging for a metrosexual. Most of the women on this show, they want a man. They don't want a feminine dude. This is the exact opposite of what feminists in the mainstream media have been telling women for years they should want. According to the media, you want a man willing to wear an apron and cook you organic cucumber. You want a man who is unwilling to stomp on that roach on the floor because he is sensitive to nature. In his book, Bill Maher talks about the dating decline in America. Maybe, just maybe, there is a decline in dating because Hollywood and the media have conditioned men to behave more like women and women to behave more like men. I wonder if that throws off the dynamics in a relationship. You know, the other day, I was talking to one of my friends. He works with a lot of kids in the generation behind mine. I think they call themselves Gen Z. They should call themselves Gen V because it seems like most of them haven't been inside of a woman since birth. He was telling me how different these dudes are compared to how we were growing up. When I was 18, 19, in my early 20s, I was never at home. We were always on the road, traveling from city to city, party to party. My friend was telling me that these dudes, they spend their weekends alone at home. They come to work on Monday bragging about what they did with their inflatable partners. And I'm not making that up. They even converse with each other, talking about the latest sale on whatever website they buy their inflatable partners from. Now, does that mean the entire generation is like this? No, but I don't remember any fellow millennials bragging about their relationship with a woman who requires an air compressor. Is it any wonder why so many women are single? They can't find a real man. Like I said earlier, Nicole Hemmer, she is a professor of history at Vanderbilt. She focuses on conservative media and how it impacts presidential elections. If she's writing articles like this for CNN, just imagine what she is teaching her students during American History 101. George Washington was anti-woman. Tom Jefferson was a polygamist. Ben Franklin wanted to identify as Betty. Average tuition at Vanderbilt around $84,000 a year. This is the kind of education parents are paying for. But give me your thoughts on this. CNN publishes an article blasting Bill Maher and Jerry Seinfeld, Adam Carolla, for wanting a return of masculinity. Do you think Hollywood and the media have impacted gender roles? Have generations of men and women been impacted by what they see on TV? All my ladies, what kind of men do you want? Do you want the men portrayed by CNN and the rest of the media? Or do you want the traditional man, for lack of a better word, the man the media would describe as toxically masculine? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, share the video. Appreciate your support. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, and I'll see you guys later.